what are we going to do as a plan to win the 2026 midterms, which is around the corner?
Yeah.
What's the plan as left
Of center.
not what are we doing as progressives with Bernie and AOC? I'm talking about what are we all doing as how do we check Trump's power?
How to check Trump's power, yeah.
As the first, kind of the very first thing we all do. Before we give everybody Medicare for all, we need to slow Trump's plowing through.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what you think of that.
And you can do way more than win the House in 2026 if you want.
All right.
Because the healthcare cuts are coming. What Bernie wants to do is not even close to what the entirety of the rest of the Democrat Party wants to do.
Sure, of course.
There's a reason they've distanced themselves from him. Welcome back to the United Front show. Another week, another show, a bunch of news has happened.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. There's been the taco discourse around Trump that I somehow completely missed. I'm not really sure how I managed that. It seems like everybody else heard about this and I was left out.
I recommend you stay up on Reddit.
Yeah, clearly I need to keep up with the internet.
You don't spend enough time on Reddit.
No, I don't. Speaking of social media, follow us on all the socials. Hit subscribe. It'll help us grow because we're the greatest political show on the internet. Share it, like it, comment, even if you're yelling at me. That's fine. I appreciate any engagement.
We want to hear other people's opinions.
Yeah, if you think we're wrong, please tell me that I'm wrong. I'm happy to hear that I'm wrong.
I'm happy to hear that he's wrong.
Yeah. We have a Patreon. Go there, support us. We'll have a plaque dedicated to you eternally.
Well, just like we said, the first paid Patreon is going to get a mug right here, a coffee mug with their handle on it.
That super heavy one.
Right
You're
here.
the one that's like 20 kilograms.
Sure.
It's a huge steel mug that Brian Shaw, the world's strongest man, tries to lift.
Something huge.
Yeah, if we tried to lift it, it would just do this. My hand just wouldn't.
Be like Thor's hammer.
Yeah, and we'll etch you into it.
He likes to push the sarcasm all the way to the point of such extreme that it's very obvious that it's sarcasm.
I would like for it to be obvious that it's sarcasm.
It's not always obvious to people, by the way.
No, I hope it gets harder. So you sent me something this week that you wanted to talk about.
Just in my research, or really just watching this week, what's been happening, or how the podcaster universe is responding to what's going on this week. That's where
podcaster universe.
That's where I get a lot of things, right? So I like Scott Galloway and Tim Miller and these guys. And so anyway, I'm watching podcasts this week, and I noticed a theme that seems to be developing among the influencers on the left, because I'll call these guys influencers. I'll call Scott Galloway an influencer.
I'd call them influencers. I wouldn't call them left.
Left of center.
Now I'm with you. You lost me. You got me back.
I noticed that in this left of center, I'm just going to burn that in, influencer political landscape that's out there. I'm seeing for the first time, what are we going to do as a plan to win the 2026 midterms, which is around the corner?
Yeah.
What's the plan as left
of center,
not what are we doing as progressives with Bernie and AOC? I'm talking about what are we all doing as how do we check Trump's power?
How to check Trump's power, yeah.
As the first, kind of the very first thing we all do. Before we give everybody Medicare for all, we need to slow Trump's plowing through.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what you think of that, because I thought, is it possible that it's going to rub an ideologically strong person, however you identify yourself, like a progressive Bernie, a socialist, FDR, New Deal Democrat, like that out in that, in that field?
To what?
To the idea of, we're not talking about all that right now. What we need to talk about in 2026, which is Rahm Emanuel's point and then Scott Galloway's point.
Double down on it.
Yeah, right.
A day or two later, you said, yeah.
We'll play it.
You should make the battle cry, raise taxes on the wealthy so that we can give health care to the many. Very simple. Don't try to solve all the problems. This is setting up 2026. The one thing we can win is 2026. The independent voters, which are going to be key in swing states and swing districts, want reform, but most importantly, they want a check on an untethered, unchecked Donald Trump. This is not about oligarchy. This is not about fascism. This is not about do-nothing Democrats and weakness. Midterms are a referendum on the party in power. Washington interest groups see corruption as the Qatar jet, the Bitcoin. The public sees corruption as a well-heeled, well-connected, getting a tax cut, and we're getting our healthcare cut. That's how they perceive corruption. And we should go right at it, drive like a Mack truck right to that point, and don't go off wandering onto other ancillary issues. We don't have a lot of bandwidth as a party. We don't have a gavel. We don't have a court. We don't have a judge. We don't have the executive branch and the bully pulpit. The wealthy are walking off with all the money, and you're paying for it with your health care. It also has the beauty of one thing. It's true.
I like that.
And this is my problem with the left, is we get outraged and we're more interested with proving and grasping its social virtue as opposed to actually focusing on what impacts the material and psychological well-being of millions of Americans. And this is what is going to impact tens of millions of Americans. This big, beautiful tax bill is about to cut taxes for 5% of the wealthiest Americans and take away Medicaid for 8 million people and increase the deficit by almost $4 trillion, which will be a tax on tens of millions of young people. And by the way, it's going to disproportionately impact red states. So if we focus on that and say, what is really impacting millions of people, we might actually take back control of Congress. But instead, we go for, oh no, let's get outraged about Harvard. Okay, I get it. But they are purposely trying to misdirect us.
Rahm Emanuel, the first clip, to sum it up, he's harping on healthcare and reversing the healthcare cuts is his overarching point. He wants to raise taxes on people making more than $2.5 million.
He talks about even like writing a bill.
Yeah, he's like, make it a simple, clear bill Democrats write to restore the healthcare cuts by raising some taxes, bring corporate tax rate back up to 27%.
Yep.
To restore healthcare cuts,
which is not even up as high as it was to 35%, which is where it's at for a long time.
Yeah,
until it was cut down to 21.
Yeah,
by Trump.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, and then he's saying independent voters in swing states want two things: reform and checks on Trump. And then this is where he loses me, even though he's like directly pointing out that this is the issue. So we can get into that. But he says this is not about oligarchy or fascism, and it's not about weak Democrats. So he kind of emphasizes it's not about that. Don't ever speak about it. Which it's not important.
To me, felt like a direct aim at Bernie in that what he's talking about.
Yeah, that was definitely
or those that are really harping on the Trump as a fascist.
He lined that shot up against anybody to his left, and he's pretty moderate. He's been lining that up for a while.
Yeah.
He scoped that one in.
Yeah. I wish he would have done a better job explaining it, because it felt almost dismissive of the ideas of we're anti-fascist.
I would argue his goal was to be dismissive of that narrative.
Well, that's a shame. So
I'm not saying he necessarily.
Do you disagree with him? That's my question.
Yes.
Do you disagree with the idea of in 2026, our collective goal left of center is to...
I can expand, but yes, I disagree.
Is to try to win as much as we can so we have some sort of a majority left of center in the House so we can push back against what Trump is doing.
Yeah.
That's just in 2026. In 2028, we can get to the more ideological anti-oligarch.
Yeah, I disagree
We don't
with
like
him.
fascists. Okay.
Second video, there's a point that I disagree with both of them on.
Is it
that connects to what you just asked.
All right.
So video 2 was Scott Galloway himself. He said a day or two later, making a point.
Yep. On the Pivot podcast.
On the Pivot podcast, he was making the point that it's not smart for, I don't even know who he was referring to, I guess left of center, he mentioned specifically the international students getting kicked out of Harvard, but largely more he was referring to social issues aren't as important, focus on economic issues.
Yes, that's his point.
He said it's a problem with the left. What are you referring to? Because I feel like he would refer to himself as the left.
Yeah.
Right?
Probably left.
He's also plenty smart enough to like really be IDing some people here.
I think left media, mainstream left media.
Okay, maybe is probably what he's referring to.
That's what it felt like he was referring to.
Sure.
When I watched the whole...
He's intelligent enough to like use a word like that and then in his head have an image of what he's saying.
Sure.
That's all I'm wondering.
Yep.
And then he said, again, focus not on social virtue, but tangible issues like economics. And to do all this to take back control of Congress.
Yeah.
To which I put to do what? So it's the same issue that I had with the first clip.
Okay.
To which is, we're doing this, even the stuff that they want us to focus on is pretty watered down, even from what Biden was talking about. So it's ultimately still a concession to Trump in that we've reverted 80% of what he's done. Like you mentioned, corporate tax rate was 35% for a long time. And then Trump dropped it, and we're not even getting back to what it used to be forever. But I would say quickly is we're doing what I feel like is A, not popular, B, not nearly enough to counter Trump, if that's the goal. Which I believe that they believe, like I trust them in saying that's what they want to do.
Well, just to clarify that, I think the point is that they want to win the House in 2026.
Yeah, you can do way more than win the House in 2026 if you want.
All right.
Because the healthcare cuts are coming.
All right.
So you can do way more than just win the House if you want to. And so I say, why are we being tentative and hesitant?
Yeah, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The reason is that, and Rahm Emanuel speaks about it specifically, the reason is that the independents in the swing states are not yet sold. And too many of those...
was about to make an incredibly disparaging comment on independents.
I mean, it doesn't matter. They're a third of the voting bloc. So, it doesn't matter what your opinion of them is. The point is that we have to sell, which it goes back to the AOC and Bernie branding thing that obviously nobody took our advice and went to work on that. So we still have not done near good enough job of selling our ideas to voters in the United States.
Well, let me ask you a question. Have you thought that maybe the ideas we're trying to sell just aren't popular?
I mean, I think Bernie's ideas are popular.
Bernie's not the Democrats.
I'm just talking about left of center. That's all I'm talking about right now.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
We have to make this distinction.
Well, but...
because what Bernie wants to do is not even close to what the entirety of the rest of the Democrat Party wants to do.
Sure, of course.
There's a reason they've distanced themselves from him.
Of course.
So we could mention Bernie all day.
Economically is where they differ.
Hard.
Right.
Hard.
It's the main thing.
And so I would say that we can't use Bernie as a reference here. You have to use somebody else.
All right. Who?
And you can't use AOC either.
Okay.
Because she's just also ousted. Pick any other Democrat you want to. And it will instantly be far more in line with what they're actually proposing.
So what's the greater point?
None of those guys are real popular. None of those people who isn't them too are very popular.
All right, well, then let me ask you this question.
Okay.
I guess I don't know the answer.
What?
I mean, I thought Bernie was really popular, but I guess he's not. So
Who is? Hold on.
What?
You're with me. I think Bernie is popular.
You just said he wasn't popular.
With the institution of the Democrat Party.
No, I get it.
Just like they rat fucked him in 2020.
No, I know. I mean, yeah.
So they'll do it again.
Right, but I'm talking about the people, the voters.
Yeah.
Because this is about the 2026
The Democrats don't
midterm.
listen to the voters.
I understand that, but I'm talking about what should we be talking about, me and you, as a part of the influencer podcast world? Should we be talking about for 2026 as the general goal for all of those of us that are left of center, plus probably a pretty good block of independents, if we talk about this is a referendum on what Trump is doing, so our goal is to pare it down to the kind of the one or two most important issues that are a problem. And in this case, it's a bill to raise taxes on the wealthy and to give everybody back their health insurance that has lost 8 million people, plus all the many, many, many more millions of people that are immediately associated with that group of people as well, by the way. And it especially affects those in red states, which is a golden opportunity. We should be looking at it. Again, those of us left of center, all of those of us left of center, plus even some independents.
So
a referendum against Trump.
Yeah.
So we win the House, so then Trump can do less damage year 3 and 4 as the first goal.
Well, I would say you could, with all the cuts that are coming and all the bad reports are going to be coming out, I feel like you can just get the good, really good Democrats in office anyway. You don't have to do this stopgap because you're also going to do the thing of once they're in office and you're fucked. You're not going to get them primaried.
All right. So
poll from 2023. I could 2 seconds. I was registering it right now. I'm sure there's a newer one. 79% of Democrats support that it's the federal government's responsibility to everybody's healthcare coverage. So interpret that how you will.
Right.
88% of Democrats.
Yes.
59% of independents.
All right. Okay, let's use that as a point then. So Rahm Emanuel, he says that the way we should approach this, even Scott Galloway kind of implies it, that we should have a bill that gives people back their Medicaid that they've lost.
Yeah.
And you're saying what we should be doing,
We can do way more if we wanted.
as a campaign platform, is to start to make the pitch for Medicare for all or equivalent. So that's the point that I'm making, is that we haven't done near a good enough job selling the idea.
Oh, yeah. Well, what we want to sell is not what a majority of liberals or Democrats want to sell. Most of them don't want to do that.
I think that you're missing the point, though, maybe, if I'm understanding you right, but I might not be. There's going to be a primary election for, the Democratic Party. So I encourage those who would like to talk about Medicare for all or some version of that as their main thing. And now's the time to do it. 8 million people are about to lose their health insurance.
Yeah, that's my point is now more than ever, you're going to be able to sell that idea.
But the polling indicates that lots of people
This
like
has been
that
true
idea.
since 2016. Like, this has been true for nearly a decade.
It continues to be true.
Extremely popular.
Right. Even those of us that still have the health care.
Practically every Democrat, a majority of independents, and far more Republicans than you might think.
I think our problem is we don't have enough people that are running or that are at least in office. Again, I encourage them.
For office,
I encourage them to run.
Make some noise, yeah.
And Bernie is trying to do that. He's helping people to run in 2026. It's really crazy. He's got a lot of people that he signed up, like thousands of people through his website on his tour. He was inviting people to run for office.
Yeah.
So I feel like Bernie's doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the only one that's making any real attempt.
Yeah, he's doing something at least, yeah.
He created like a committee or a group or some sort of an agency or something that will help. Like if you decided you wanted to run as a progressive,
there's an organization
there's an organization that will help you to do everything you need to do to run. So that's awesome. And he may not even be the only one that does that. There may be others as well.
I'm sure there's plenty, but
the problem is there just isn't enough running. Those that are running are not good enough at making the pitch.
Yeah, no.
You and I know somebody, and he's good, but he doesn't make the pitch as well as he needs to. It isn't compelling enough.
I have a potentially controversial opinion as somebody who lives in a very red area. I nearly wholly reject the idea that you can't be progressive and win in a red area. What you message about is important.
It's how you sell it.
Because I would say my ideas are more like let's say I'm running for office. What I want to do will percentage-wise help red areas more than blue areas. What I want to run on would help a city way less than would help a red area. It would rejuvenate a red area. It would make the city better, but it wouldn't rejuvenate it.
Right.
Just sell the idea.
Yeah.
I think you can run as a progressive in a red area.
I think you can too.
I mean, you might need to mold your imaging and your branding.
Of course.
Some, but the ideas don't have to be watered down. They're popular.
Yeah. It's not the ideas. It's how well you sell it, how authentic you are in that you believe it, how you are as a candidate. That's it. I mean, Bernie has won every election, that he's ever been in, or, I mean.
Practically, yeah.
For the most, I mean, obviously, he's an independent and he gets reelected every year in a landslide, and he will as long as he's alive and able to serve. So, and he almost overthrew the Democratic Party by himself in 2 different elections.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like there was some active pushback, against that. Pete Buttigieg doesn't really like that idea. He talked about that in that podcast as well.
I'll have to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, it was very interesting. That there were some shots at Bernie.
Yeah, I think the issue is what we need to be talking about is what's good for people.
So I think what's best for people right now is to stop Trump and to be sure that we win that left of center. I don't care what you are. I don't care if you're a bought and paid for Democrat or not. As long as you're left of center.
There goes the intro to all the other podcasts we just did.
So, but that's what I'm wondering is I just don't think that we've done a good enough job to make the pitch and to grow the grassroots movement big enough that we can say we want to sell the idea of we want to run people that don't take any corporate money at all.
Well, you are fighting both political parties trying to achieve that.
That's true. That's true.
So you are fighting twice the fight.
But what's more important to me this year, long term, the other thing is key, but what's more important to me this year is stopping the damage that Trump is doing and to try to slow his roll for year 3 and 4. That to me is number one, even though the ideology always is still there and falls.
Here's how I completely push back. I think only 5 bills have passed through Congress and they control both houses. I think only 5 bills have gone through. This beautiful bill isn't, there's still a ton of shit that has to happen with it.
Yeah.
It's not even through yet.
Yeah, it's not.
And there's a bunch of Republicans who are vocally against it.
Rick Scott.
Because of spending.
Rick Scott.
Yeah, some like larger name Republicans are against it.
Big one.
So it's going to be stalled for a while at least. It'll pass in some horrible form. It is horrible, right? But it's going to be stalled for a while, I imagine.
Okay.
So all the horrible shit that's happening has nothing to do with Congress. It has everything to do with the executive office. It's all EOs. It's not, none of it is bills. Winning the House.
And a lot of the EOs are kind of stopped in court anyway.
Yeah, and they eventually hit a court stop, and then he just signs a new one. And then they have to go through that process. But he just keeps signing EOs.
Sure.
Well, he's signing them. Stephen Miller signing these EOs. I agree, probably getting Congress is a good, as a rule, that's a great idea. I don't want Republicans to have any control of the government. So, cool. Doing it wouldn't really effectively change anything, though. Unless the Democrats all of a sudden had massive balls and were like, we're actually going to remove the fucking president. Which...
Well, I mean, they impeached him twice, but...
Yeah, I don't believe they're going to do it.
Well, I mean, they'll impeach him again. I mean, if they have the House, then they'll impeach him again. So it doesn't mean that it'll obviously go through the Senate, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, they'll impeach him again.
Double my point. So I think if what was happening was Congress was spitting out bills, spitting them out, way more like we have to stop the flood. We have to close the floodgates.
Yes. Okay.
Then I would be like, yeah, we're flooding horrible fascist bills out. We have to stop the flood. It's EOs.
Right.
The House is going to do nothing about that. He's just going to keep signing EOs.
Yeah.
And I also think that if you sign or bring in...
Isn't it true, though?
Far more moderate Democrats, I think all you've done is significantly extended the timeline of getting the good stuff you want passed. Because not all of them will last and stay in Congress. A lot of them will. They'll entrench themselves. The Democrats will entrench them.
I just think that we don't have the supply of progressives running for office nationwide that are good enough to do this. So look, it's one thing if you said to me, I've got an army of 10,000 articulate, brilliant progressives that are ready to run in 2026 and they want their messaging, then I think I would be much more likely to agree with you. Like, now's the time to strike. The iron's hot on healthcare. People are losing insurance.
Do you believe that the officials get voted in by the people?
Do I believe that
the government officials are elected in by people?
Like members of Congress?
Yeah.
In the 2026 election, for example? Do I feel like they're voted in by voters?
Yeah.
I think they are.
Okay.
As best as I understand how voting works.
I agree. Probably we're not going to be able to get a bunch of, radicals into office. I don't think we're going to flood the House with AOCs. I don't think that's going to happen. Or Jasmine Crockett's. I don't think that's going to happen. But
if we had 10,000 ready to go, though.
What you can do is do our small attempt. I'll put our small hands on to shift the Overton window back. Because it was very much in the Medicare for all camp. And now it's slid backwards. Shifted back.
Okay.
That's what you do.
I buy that.
Because these people want to get voted in. It's what happens when they're getting letters, texts, calls, emails.
So you're saying, how about this even as...
Like I said this a trillion times, and so have you. When Bernie was on stage in 2020, mysteriously, every very moderate Democrat was like, yeah, actually, we're going to freeze the rents. We're going to ban billionaires. We're going to... You have to have the greatest healthcare in the world. You're going to love it. Colleges... What in the world?
Bernie moved things left.
Now, he's a little bit more popular than we are. But I think the lesson still applies. He had popularized the idea with the people so much that they had to run on that in some sense. There wasn't much accountability for it.
Yeah.
But I prefer a populist who far prefers those ideas.
Okay.
The tax thing is like, we should raise taxes to 27%. Fuck that. That's not how you should run on it. It should be way more aggressive. No. You're going to get the best health care.
Right.
There's plenty of money out there.
Okay.
It exists. And when we tax it from them, they won't even know because they're so rich. Okay. And then you can have great healthcare. And that's what you do. You don't sell it as we're going to tinker. Because that's tinkering. That's tinkering.
How do those who sell it best, what's their sales pitch? I've heard Bernie's. I know what Bernie's is.
I don't know what anyone else's sales pitch is.
In the richest country in the world, it should be a right for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know what anyone else has a pitch other than tinkering.
How about AOC? What's her messaging like about healthcare?
I don't see much of them.
The fact that neither of us can think of it.
Yeah, but she's bad at it.
Is the problem. But this is AOC we're talking about.
Yeah, Bernie's the only one that beats that drum.
He's the only one that I can even think of that has some messaging that I
think that's a larger issue. I think he's the only person who was run as a Democrat who has any understanding of how to do things that are popular or support and believe popular things. Probably because he actually, I think, has some values. So I think he's probably the only Democrat or person who runs a Democrat who understands that concept.
Okay.
Right? I think there's other, I think Pritzker's probably a good guy.
Pritzker?
And Bashir, I think, is a good guy too.
Bashir. You think he'd give everybody Medicare for all?
I think we got a better shot with Bashir than Josh Shapiro.
Oh, interesting. How about Tim Walz?
Ooh, I like Waltz too, yeah.
All right. How about Pete Buttigieg?
No.
No way.
I can't do Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, he wouldn't.
Nice guy.
Yes, very.
Seems like a great guy.
Brilliant.
Love to hang out with him.
He's definitely brilliant.
Not my problem. That's not the issue I have with him. I think he's a tinkerer.
Yes.
So, and I think the bigger thing is people, I think more and more are starting to realize this whole thing's a sham. We don't want more of what got us here. That seems to be becoming a more prevalent belief. More and more.
I get it.
I mean, people doubled down on Trump because he's going to rattle the system. Even people who were Biden supporters were like, Trump will shake it up.
Mm-hmm.
So
even though we already had Trump for 4 years.
Yeah, and it wasn't good. Happened. And we're doing it again. So clearly,
it's important to shake it up.
We're going to go back to tinkering and we're going to just do a few tweaks here and there and we're good. So clearly, that's not what people want or believe or think or care about.
So
clearly.
So you're advocating for bold, big ideas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think people want ideas. People want something to believe in. I can't believe in we're going to raise taxes a little bit for here and there and we're going to restore some cuts and we're going to be right back to where we were. That's
incrementalism.
I can't. That's not inspiring. Bernie if he was younger, and imagine if he was 60,
right,
55.
Yeah, if he had 25 more years in him.
Now imagine getting up on stage and saying, you're going to get the greatest healthcare in the world and you're going to like it. Mm-hmm. But damn right I am. Way more support with that. So I think if these people want to stay behind the scenes and work on policy and not water down the messaging, that's fine. So I think as an administrative mindset or an intellectual academic mindset,
a technocratic approach.
This makes a lot more sense, what they're saying. As a politician doing politics, this is nonsense.
Which is to say the salesperson and the messaging.
Nonsense. I think to be a politician, you have to believe in something and sell what you believe in.
I agree.
This is none of that.
No, it's not.
None of it is.
Not what Rahm Emanuel
And people
said.
can see right through it. They can see straight through it. That's all you heard about Kamala Harris. She doesn't believe anything. Everybody said that.
Right.
You can see through it now. No amount of media training saves you. And so I say this is what you do in behind closed doors with the policymakers talking to the politician. And he's like, no, we can't do that. We got to do more. Come on, guys. What are we doing here? Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll draft up something better. That's what these people probably should be at. Not being advisors to campaigns. That is a nightmare fuel.
So I love what you're saying.
Okay.
Then to me, the thing that becomes the priority is to find as many people that can sell that messaging that you're describing to get them to run for office for 2026.
Yeah. I think,
one more person than is running now.
Let me say something that I don't think these people believe. Democrats are winning the House.
No matter what.
Let me be clear.
Are you prophesying
Yeah,
again?
I'm prophesying again. The Lord hath spoken to me.
He came to you.
Yeah, the Lord hath spoken to me.
And what's going to happen in 2026? No matter what?
The Dems are winning the House.
No matter what?
I don't know if it's going to be 1 seat or 30 seats. I don't know, because the healthcare cuts are going to come in.
It's going to affect people.
Evidence of all the stuff that he's done to mess everything up.
Yeah.
We're going to start seeing it.
But we need to harp on that in the election.
It needs to be harped on.
Yeah, in the election.
That'll make it better. That's how you get 30 seats instead of 1 seat, is if you beat the drum nonstop, right? So if you want 30 seats, beat the drum. If you want 1 seat, stay quiet. Bang the drum that Trump is evil dictator. He's arresting U.S. citizens, attempting to deport U.S. citizens. He's letting Elon Musk get richer, and he's going to take the money out of your pocket because that's where it's going to come from. Into healthcare, your doctor can't see him anymore. You don't have healthcare. Your parents, nope, they can't go to the doctor anymore. The meds you have, I'm sorry, you got to pay for that out of pocket now. Now you're down hundreds of dollars. So he's taking your money and giving it to Elon because apparently he thinks Elon doesn't have enough money. Beat that drum, 30 seats.
So we need 10,000 more AOCs.
If you beat the drum, you're more likely to get people to support more progressive candidates.
If you beat the drum.
If you beat the drum.
Yeah.
Like
if
in an
everybody
area, there's like moderate, semi-moderate, semi-progressive. There's not going to be a ton of true progressives or leftists. But if you beat the drum, you're more likely to get the kind of progressive person than the moderate.
Won't it be important?
Does that make sense?
Sure. Won't it be important then to have consistent messaging nationwide, understanding that, everybody's nationwide now, with this in your hand. AOC isn't my representative, but boy, I sure do hear a whole lot more about her than I do about my own.
I wonder what she's talking about and beating the drums on.
So
I wonder what.
How important is it to get some sort of a consistent messaging of all of those that are running so they can, because they're not going to be the political experts and they're not going to know. I mean, me and you have been studying this hardcore for a year. Yeah. And so we have some good idea.
I would say rule 1 is you instantly stop listening to political advisors. That's step 1. They're too detached.
Like Rahm Emanuel.
They're just too detached. They're just too removed.
David Axelrod.
Too removed. Right? That's step 1. I could think of a person, my mom, who is not likes politics at all. Very much, if she brings it up, is very much beating the drum Bernie beats, if it's brought up.
Interesting.
So knows Trump is horrible, hates him, but not really kind of in otherwise, votes, right, whatever, is beating a very similar drum to Bernie's beating.
Fascinating.
Right? So when you actually go outside and talk to people, shockingly, a lot of people are going to agree, at least in the ballpark of Bernie, in the sense of we can give people health care. Actually, we are going to tax the wealthy because that's where all the money's at.
Yeah.
And if we tax them 5% more, they'll have no idea.
I'll be curious to hear what people think the 3 big things that we should be hitting hard.
Yeah, banging the drum on.
Banging the drum on in messaging in a unified, coordinated way among the 10,000
I think
people that are part of whatever movement we're talking about. Again, there's still no name for this movement. I guess progressive is kind of the closest kind of general umbrella term.
Yeah,
but
general umbrella is closest probably.
So that's fine. I mean, it's all right if it's that. I don't care. But
because the fight Bernie's fighting is not the fight Chuck Schumer's fighting. Not even close.
Who?
Chuck Schumer. I'm being the most extreme I can be.
Sure.
On purpose.
Yeah, I get it. I buy it.
Not even close to the same fight.
Yeah.
So there has to be a distinction there of what fight do you want to fight? Do you want to fight the Hakeem Jeffries fight or the AOC, Jasmine Crockett, that fight? Which one do you want to pick? I know who I'm picking.
I know who I like.
It ain't the lames in Congress. That's who I'm not picking.
Who do you like? Do you like Democrats that are bought and paid for by corporate interests? Or do you like those that
actually listen to people and
stand for the people
and believe in something?
Truly stand for the people.
Yeah.